episode 174, Saying Yes to Business Opportunities, with Kyle Wells of Torpedo Coffee and Close Quarters. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. I'm excited to have you on the show today as we explore the topic of saying yes to business opportunities and diving into the topic of assessing opportunity as it comes your way in business by looking at one person's expansion of their shop, and that is Kyle Wells of Torpedo Coffee, past guest on the show and Founder Friday, and now helping us explore his process of saying yes to a business opportunity. And my hope is that this interview will be really helpful to you in your situation right now and wherever you are in your business. Now, today's episode is brought to you by the great folks over at Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's best specialty coffee equipment suppliers, and they are based right here in Louisville, Kentucky. They just do such an amazing job curating the best equipment from all over the globe, staying up to date with the best tech to deliver this great equipment to your home and your shop. So if you're looking for a home bar, they have what you need. But if you're looking also to outfit your coffee bar and or your new coffee bar as you expand, they have what you need for commercial equipment, be it an espresso machine or a brewer or equipment like under-counter refrigeration. If your coffee shop needs it, Prima Coffee has it. Go to prima-coffee.com and see what I mean. I think you're going to be impressed by the offerings that they have on their website, but also note that there are a ton of free resources on their website to help you learn more about the equipment and coffee brewing in general. And that's what really drives Prima Coffee, is to help you be successful in making great coffee. So again, go to prima-coffee.com and let them help you get the right gear for your situation. Let them know the Keys to the Shop sent you. And thank you so much to Prima for their support of Keys to the Shop. This episode is also brought to you by the Pacific Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages. The Pacific Barista Series is designed specifically for professional baristas. In fact, it's designed alongside of professional baristas because they have standards for excellence for what they serve. And Pacific knows this and develops these products so that you would be proud to serve these behind your bar. Whether you're serving almond milk, soy, coconut, rice, or oat milk, its ability to take the heat from the steaming process and produce a great silky texture and keep the flavor balance focused on coffee, all of this makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. Go to pacificfoods.com to learn more about the Barista Series. Get it in your shop and try it out for yourself. Learn more at pacificfoods.com. And thank you so much, Pacific, for your support of Keys to the Shop. Okay, so today we are diving into the topic of opportunities in business. And if you are in business, you put yourself out there in the world, obviously other people are going to take notice, and not just your customers, but people who want to partner with your business, people who want to offer you all kinds of different suggestions or business opportunities. And it can be kind of overwhelming. There can be a lot of hesitation, and there can also be a lot of bad decisions made for fear of missing out on an opportunity. The trick is to be able to choose the right opportunity for you, and that is exactly what Kyle Wells of Torpedo Coffee has done for him in his business. They're expanding to another shop that is called Close Quarters, not a year into operating Torpedo Coffee. You might recognize Kyle Wells from a past Founder Friday episode where we interviewed him at a Coffee Fest show in Denver before his business was opened up, and then again 6 months after his business was opened to get a before and after in the life of a coffee shop owner. And now Kyle is back as he is expanding to this new location, and we're having a conversation about how he went about deciding on whether this was the right opportunity for him and all the kind of intricacies that go with it, the systems, the personal audits that you have to do as an owner. And we get into some details that I think are really going to be helpful for you to bear in mind when you're presented with opportunities, which you will be with your business. And so Kyle, as always, delivers some great insights, very well spoken, and a successful coffee shop entrepreneur So I would definitely take notes here because there's a lot to learn. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Kyle Wells of Torpedo Coffee and the soon-to-be-open Close Quarters in Denver, Colorado. Kyle Wells, welcome back to Keys to the Shop. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Doing great. It's a kind of a busy season for me. We were talking about this, and it's quite a busy season for you as well. You have this fantastic opportunity that you've taken on. You're not even a year into your operation, I think, right? And you're taking on a new location.
Yeah, that's correct. We hit a year end of this month, so officially, and but yeah, an opportunity came along that was too good to pass up. So we jumped in head first, and we're making it work.
Nice. And so when I heard about this, we thought this is a great opportunity to talk about opportunity, and there's a lot of opportunity that comes to entrepreneurs, and when you put out your shingle, as they say, a lot of people have ideas for what you should do and shouldn't do and things like that. And you seem to have exhibited a lot of confidence going forward, not only with Torpedo, but now with this new space, Close Quarters. And I want to talk a little bit about what goes on in the mind of an entrepreneur, in your mind, to bring you to this point where you say yes to a opportunity like this, because there's a lot of opportunities that would kind of come your way, but not always the right one. How did this one come about, and how did you know it was the right one to say yes to?
Yeah, great questions. For us, when we opened in September last year, it was monumental, right? It was a huge undertaking for us, me leaving corporate and kind of taking on the entrepreneur side. My wife had already been championing the entrepreneur lifestyle for about 5 years at that point with our salon, but I hadn't really been doing it myself. So I was really looking to put all of my efforts into Torpedo. And I had thought about, down the road, 3, 4, 5 years, something like that, would we want to open another shop? What would that look like? And quite frankly, it seemed pretty daunting, but it was something that was in the back of my head. And for me, it was really, let's put all of our efforts into Torpedo and making it the best it can be. Of course, we would do that. Anybody would with their shop, but that was all I was really focused on was ensuring that we were putting out solid coffee every day, solid pastries, all of our different offerings. And with that, I think we were getting some notice. We were getting some press and, neighborhood press, things like that. I had updated my social media, including my LinkedIn page, and indicating that I was, co-owner of Torpedo Coffee. And so we had a gentleman in the neighborhood that had stopped by, and he has done some other restaurant work in the city, but it was running a coffee and cocktails shop over on our light rail transit line here. And so he had reached out because his operating partners had kind of moved on, and was wondering if we would be willing to partner with him. And I kind of dismissed it pretty quickly. But it was his initial overture was through LinkedIn, and I had said, thanks, love to hear more about it, but not really looking to expand. I'm not even paying myself. It was something along those lines. So, but he had said, well, let's have a phone call, and let's have a conversation about this. And so we dug into it deeper, and he told me a little bit more about the specifics. And then my wife Falene and I went over to the shop and met with him there. And at this point, we had no idea how this was going to go, what we were going to do. He was still floating the idea of some kind of partnership, with him being a silent partner and us doing the operation. And we still kept it very, very high level at that point. And really we're just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's interesting. We really appreciate you thinking of us. But, let us digest the numbers. Let us look a little bit more at your, he opened all of his books to us and the lease and everything else and said, let us know what you think. And really was under no pressure in terms of a timeline or anything like that. And so we took that back and started to think that through.
A lot's there.
Yeah.
You said you dismissed it initially, obviously, because, anything that comes in through LinkedIn could be great, could be just spammy. And,
right.
So I guess anybody would sort of think twice about just getting their hopes up about an opportunity, but it didn't sound like there was a lot of desire to just jump into something else while you're still just in the first year of your new business. But after he spoke with you and you found out that it was legit, was there still a bit of a reservation when it comes to saying yes to it, not because of the terms or anything, but because of the workload that it would take on you and your wife to really get this going amidst your businesses? Like, you're taking the interview right now in your wife's salon,
yes,
at the coffee bar, and now this new project. How did you get over that hump of, this is going to be more work for me, and that's okay? How did you get to the that's okay part?
Yeah, that was definitely a lot of kind of sleepless nights of thinking through, and quite, honestly, there's still quite some of those of just kind of thinking through how am I going to hire and have enough people, and that. I think that's definitely one of the business owner, entrepreneur, really any company's bigger challenge, right? Especially in today's market with unemployment being as low as it is, ensuring that you have the people to be able to do that, and that you've got the right team and that you've hired right. And to your point, I mean, early on, I had put some systems in place, but it was rather loose, right? Remember, I was coming from a corporate environment where I was not doing food and bev. I loved coffee, but I wasn't, running a coffee shop. So I feel like I got pretty lucky with hiring some pretty solid people in the early days that had come from either, managing shops that in other states that had multiple locations, or had come from a food and bev background where they did a lot of opening and closing. And so, while I had some kind of loose outlines of, closing checklists or inventory process or those kinds of things, I didn't have those systemized. I was still working a lot of shifts behind the bar. So those were all things that I kept thinking, okay, if we do this, I mean, geez, I'm going to have to be at this next location a lot more than I am here. What is that going to look like? Do I have enough people? How do I staff everything? A lot of the same concerns I had when I opened Torpedo, which was, how am I going to staff it? Do I know anybody that's even a barista? How do I trust somebody to close my shop and to do my deposit, and all those types of things. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to get over that pretty quickly and get over the lack of trust. I mean, and be ready to put your faith in humanity and other people, and of course have some pretty solid standards of hiring so that you can ensure that you've got people that you can count on to be there. Mm. But to your point, I mean, back in the beginning of the year, I was still working a lot behind the bar. I had to hire more people. I had to put more trust in the people that I did have to allow them to be there when I wasn't there, in terms of closing or, getting through an opening every day, and then getting through the day to day of just getting orders in and, ensuring that we had those systems in place for delivery and all of those things. So I think as we were kind of solidifying this idea of having another location, that put more pressure and urgency on me to ensure that I had those systems nailed down. Even to the point where some of my team, the baristas at the shop, were coming back to me saying, okay, we know you're not going to be here as much if you're going to do this. You have to kind of give up the reins a little bit more
Yeah.
and have these systems. We need a better way to track inventory. We need a better way to inventory, or, to go through and do the counts. Who do you contact when this happens? When, you're low on coffee, whatever. How do you place the orders for these different suppliers? And so that forced me to then take it out of my head, which sometimes I'm a little too notorious for, of just leaving everything, I've got it. It's all in my head and I can manage that.
Right.
Not when you have multiple locations.
So the teamwork is really at the crux of what makes this possible, and of the next level trust, because you definitely could just pop in anytime you want right now. But when you've got this location that's currently, I think, you said they're grinding the concrete floors right now, and things have already progressed, and so you already have to have graduated to that level of even more hands-off, in a sense, not like in a dereliction of duty sense of being hands-off, but empowering your staff to take the reins and give them the trust they need. A lot of owners are in every little detail because they can't get over that. Have you found that once you've taken that step, and you've taken that step in other small ways before, and now this big one, is that what's the cycle? Is it just fear, then relief, then freedom, or what has it been for you to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is that fear. Like you said, I managing people for a lot of my career early on, or in my other chapter, my corporate chapter, there was definitely some of that there, right? Of kind of, okay, I've had all the control. I've been the task guy. Now I have to graduate to the relationship guy, and not really in everything day to day. So I was somewhat used to that. Like, okay, it's now time to kind of, turn the wheel over to somebody else and let them kind of drive the car, so to speak, even though you still own the car. Bad analogy, but you get where I'm going there.
Yeah.
So I was somewhat used to that, but now being mine, and that, I've basically, I'm paying for all these different things, and this is, ultimately my name on it when those Yelp reviews come in, good or bad, or the different feedback you hear. That's your team that you've hired, and so it does. I think makes you feel a little bit more that you've got to control somewhat of that process with the employee of training them and ensuring that they get it. But at the same time, I will say, like you said, there's a little bit of that fear, and then there's, I'll say freedom, but it's this idea of like, okay, I kind of have to let them go and see if they can stay afloat, right? And there may be a little bit of baptism by fire on some of these things, but people, I always find, are step up more than you ever think they will when you empower them and you give some responsibility, that they'll actually do things better than you probably ever thought you could, or they'll come up with new ideas as to how to make things better. And that's what happened a lot of times with what we've done, and they've helped to put more processes in place to make it easier for our communication. We've implemented other tools like Slack so that we can all stay on the same page as a team, because as you know, in a cafe, it's difficult to get all of the team members together at any given time when the cafe is also closed, when you're not trying to help somebody. So doing those types of things so we can still stay in contact, even though I'm not looking at everybody every day,
Right.
has helped me to kind of get to that point. Am I at that complete freedom point? No. And I don't know that I ever will be, right? Because there's still those times where, somebody had a flat tire, or, one of the baristas rolled their ankle, or whatever, those things that happen, and you realize, okay, shoot, I probably need to hire a little bit more, because once the other place is open, I won't be able to go step in there. I'm going to have somebody else that can also help there. So maybe there's another part-timer that we can get to call in, or, that type of thing.
Yeah. And this is all temporary too, because once your new space is up and running and you've got the staff there to the point where they are now at Torpedo, then you're going to have practiced delegation. You can sort of insert those systems that you've had the opportunity to work out in your current store. It seems like more than just an opportunity for expanding a business, but also an opportunity to refine your business. So this new one now benefits from all of the experimentation you did on the first child. as people do.
You're exactly right.
As you are obviously ready to do this as much as you can be, and your staff seem like they are just chomping at the bit to take the reins and do this on the behalf of the business and all their own professional development too. The business itself as a separate entity, how do you know when it's ready to absorb more cost? What was a deciding factor that let you think, okay, well, this is something that we can do and it's not going to be a health risk for the current business?
Well, we looked at first, what was our operating capital? What did we have out there in terms of kind of some of our other funding resources? And because honestly, right, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, especially doing this so quickly on the heels of the other one, is whether you did a small business loan or however you funded your first business, going back to the well of those funding sources, they're not as apt because they haven't really seen, most places want 2 years to see what you're doing there and how that's working. And so we were able to move some funds around and to do some things there where we were able to self-fund this. So that was number one, right? How were we going to do that? We knew that because we were buying the assets and because the space was built, things like permitting and, massive tenant improvements and, a lot of those big ticket items that you're not really seeing a huge return on investment from when you build from scratch, we weren't going to have to do here. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of that where you're looking at these assets, things like an espresso machine or a grinder or, whatever. And you know that, okay, this business has been there for 4 years. Were these used assets before? There's a lot of those types of things that are difficult to necessarily completely understand when you're looking at that. And so I knew I had already chalked up, like, I'm going to replace the espresso machine. I'll replace the grinders. Most likely I'm replacing the batch brew.
That's great, because they could be liabilities. You think you're buying assets, but they could be liabilities.
They could. Yeah. Well, and I think, we as coffee geeks or whatever, we all have our, the machines that we like and the brands that we trust. And, and so, the stuff that was in there, it was fine equipment. It just was stuff that I wasn't really used to. And I knew there were certain things that I had spent a little bit more money on at Torpedo because I knew that the machines were going to be bulletproof and they weren't going to have some of the challenges or maybe the additional manual steps that you may have with some machines. Not to say that I went super automatic or anything, but there were things that I decided, this has served me well at Torpedo. I want to replicate that here. Those were some of the things that we were thinking through. The other thing in terms of Torpedo Health was, okay, we've seen multiple months with a profit. It wasn't, a huge profit by any means, but once we got into June, that also helped me to better understand what's the summer look like, because I don't know if we talked a lot about it on the last show, but one of the unique things with Torpedo is that it's located by quite a few schools. And so not only do we have a pretty healthy lunch from one of the high schools that's close, we also have a number of parents that will stop in after school, say from the elementary school or the middle school. Things that I had projected in my initial numbers when I did the business plan, but also things that I wasn't sure. A lot of it was guesstimates, and so I wanted to kind of get further into that before we pulled the trigger, is to understand, like, okay, we are making a profit. I am paying myself. Now, not paying myself very much, but I was able able to pay myself. We have been pulling a profit. We've gotten into what would consider our slow time, and things still seem to be on track. And I've got a team that I think can keep things afloat if I'm not here every day. And so those are kind of the boxes that I was checking as I was going.
Okay, awesome. So now you yourself, in pursuing this opportunity, how are you dividing your time as the owner and basically GM of Torpedo, and now overseeing all the contractors and things like that at this new location? How are you deciding where and when to spend that time?
Well, so it's definitely a lot of scheduling, having that frank conversation with the team about, I'm not going to be here as much, so I'm going to be expecting more closing shifts from you guys, where you maybe in the past, and maybe I was staying up till almost close or whatever, helping to get things done. Now people might be there a little bit longer, or there might be, I may be bringing in a third person during the lunch hour when school's in, or I may be, me personally, I might be only coming to the shop first thing in the morning, or let's say to help during that lunch, or, at various points, but making sure that the team understood that I won't be as available. I had already kind of, in anticipation of us moving to this point of when we were going to take possession. So we took possession in August. As we were getting close to that, let's say at the end of June, I started to pull myself out of the schedule more and add more hours to the rest of the team. And by doing that, I was also then further refining, trying to anyway, some of those suppliers where, oh yeah, the person that normally, or the delivery company that would do this, either the volume I'm going to get from them is way too much of X, right? Whatever it is, cream cheese, let's say. So I don't want to get it from the delivery suppliers, but me running to Costco or something like that, that's not going to be sustainable. So how can I, do that? So we tried to get much more regular in terms of our ordering days and what we were doing there, so that it wasn't just, ad hoc as it has been. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I wish I could say, yes, I've eliminated all ad hoc delivery runs or, food runs, but those are still out there.
Oh, there are tons of stores that are 10 years in and still have to, you got to run someplace. It's just the way it is.
Exactly, yeah.
Mistakes happen. But yeah, I was struck by something you were saying just there that I think is worth noting, especially is that you are preparing your team in not just a I'm going to be here less sort of way, but also here's something to replace what I represent, like hiring a third person or being there a little bit later. So first, some people might say, well, you got to do more with less. I'm not going to be here. So, and we're going to spend all this money on this new location, so we can't afford a third person, or we can't afford to have you close the store later. So you end up embracing bad closes as the standard, and then it just starts to slip from there. So it's great that the investment that you're putting in this new location is also an investment into supplying the resources and needs of the first location. And so what I think I want to know now is a little bit about what this new location is going to entail. It sounds like it's going to be slightly different. You mentioned a liquor license, of course. That's going to be quite different. Yep. So explain the concept to us of close quarters.
So first, it's on a light rail station, so it's transit. We weren't sure kind of what that. It's also on the bottom of a residential retail spot. So there's 275 apartments above the unit there. So we knew that we'd have somewhat of a built-in clientele, which the first location is more in a little bit of a strip that's tucked into a neighborhood, right? And an older neighborhood in Denver. And so I went down to close quarters or to the location back probably May, June timeframe at between 6 and 7 and between 7 and 8, and did, my foot traffic counts where you're just sitting there and, basically counting the number of people. And of course, knowing that not all of these people are going to come through the store, but let's say it was 10%, let's say it was 5%. What does that look like? And not only am I trying to figure out, okay, what's the potential customers volume, but also if we had this place, how early or late would we be opening to start serving coffee? Typical business things that you're going to do when you're first opening that shop. We wanted to make sure that we were figuring that out, and also better understanding the demographics. I mean, I'm a Denver native, and Falene's lived here for 20 years now, but we're still trying to make sure we knew kind of what's the demographic of this neighborhood. It's going to be different than Torpedo. And so as we were doing that, we realized, okay, the traffic count for those 2 hours was about 1,000 people going back and forth, all getting on the train or getting off the train, whether they were coming from that building or elsewhere. But we knew that there was a lot. So, okay, that feels pretty good. But I'm not really seeing any of the school age kids or the parents or the drop off pickup type situation that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, it's looking much more of a transit oriented crowd, people that are on their way to work or going down to, let's say, the Pepsi Center or something like that in the afternoon for a show, or the stadium, or the things that are off of the light rail. And so as we were putting that together, and we went back to the same company that we worked with for branding on Torpedo, and it said, yeah, we think we want to do a second location. And what do we think? Should we call it Torpedo again? That probably makes sense. Let's leverage brand equity that we've already built there. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why we like working with the branding company is because they make us think differently about this. And, they came back and said, well, the thing that we love that when you came to us with Torpedo Coffee, that was a great name and your reasons for it and everything else. But at the same time, Torpedo is a weapon of war. And, we did a lot with the branding on the first company to get away from any negative connotation that comes with that, and to anthropomorphize the torpedo guy and do a lot of things that made it a little more cute and fun, and all of that comes with it, so it doesn't feel negative or war-ish, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Sure.
And so as we were talking about the second location, we knew that there was going to be a liquor license, and we knew that it was going to be a different demographic. We were brainstorming more on it, and I said, I really like the nautical theme. I like what we've done so far. How can we kind of capitalize on that still? And they kept coming back and saying, we just don't think it should be Torpedo, because we kept talking about, let's make it the adult version of Torpedo. And not to say that the first location is for kids. We don't have a play area. It's not really for kids, but there is a lot of kids in terms of whether they're coming from school or their parents are bringing them over on the weekend, or, whatever's happening. So we do have a lot of kids in and out of there. And we don't really see that necessarily as much at the new location. And so, and also because of the liquor license, we kept kind of coming back to that idea. And so then, Falene and I just started brainstorming on more name ideas. Again, this is all happening well. It's kind of like, we're not quite sure if we've still even decided we want to do this, but if we did, what would we, call it? How would we go about this? And so we had come back with a number of different, nautical terms, and the one and because this space is a little bit smaller than Torpedo, and, we had come back with the idea of close quarters, old naval term. If the ships were close to each other in battle, it was close quarters. It was difficult to fight and that kind of thing. But also because the space is a little bit more constricted, it felt like close quarters. So that's where we ended up. And so, it does change the branding. It does, change, some of that. So I do know that, we may be doing some of it where it's, coffee or Torpedo Coffee, have some hints of the brand there. so that, people still get the idea that the two are related.
Oh, that's awesome. And close quarters in that you're just opening this so soon after your first one. Just keep this up. So
Right.
you're going to do food, as you do food in your store right now, but will it be different or pretty similar to the food offerings you have now?
I think the morning offering will be similar in the sense that, breakfast burritos, pastries, egg sandwiches, some baked goods. We've been working with a great baker who's local here, and she's helped us quite a bit. But much like the first location, we will not have a full kitchen. There's not a hood, or there is a grease trap in this location, but not a hood. So we're not doing full grills or fryers or anything like that. But we do keep thinking, okay, if we do have the liquor license, and we're thinking about still in the same vein of trying to keep things as local as we can, and focusing more on kind of, highly curated list of 4 to 5 wines and beers, maybe a couple of cocktails that we'd be doing, or, introducing a mimosa, or, those types of things for the weekend brunch crowd. But not getting crazy where it's, a boom boom club that's run until 2 a.m. and we're serving fireball shots or anything like that. So.
Oh man. That would definitely torpedo your success.
Yes. So we're still kind of trying to figure out exactly what those hours look like. We know we've heard from the building management that, there's been quite a few people who have asked, like, what happened to the bar that was downstairs, because they were primarily running more as a bar. They didn't, even though they set out to do coffee and cocktails, I think they kind of abandoned the coffee program pretty quickly. Even when they were doing coffee, they didn't open till 8. So I think they missed quite a bit of the potential coffee business.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah. So we're still kind of back and forth on what will be our closing time. We're completely still trying to hammer out what's a weekend hours look like. We know that there's the potential for brunch, say from the people that live above, and there's a whole other building that's being built that opens next year, just about a block away. So we think that there's definitely the potential there for that kind of thing. But after that, you don't really have a lot of people going to work necessarily through transit, or as much as you do during the week. And so maybe we close a little bit early on the weekend. Whereas at Torpedo, it's pretty solid hours, 7 to 5 every day. This may change a little bit.
So now, as you're building all of this and in the creative process, building systems and expanding, what would you say to people that are currently running shops that will get or currently have opportunities presented to them what would you tell them to do to better position themselves to take advantage of the opportunities or to attract those opportunities? From your own experience, what would you say is the best practice to sort of get them and take advantage of them?
Yeah, so I think a couple things there. One, like I was saying earlier, don't close yourself off to opportunities. I mean, I guess what I mean by that is there's a number of people that are looking, and sure, they're not altruistically looking that, hey, I'm just out there to help Torpedo, right? I mean, there's something in it for them. But there's a number of, and what I've found so far is real estate people typically are always, and it feels like definitely for coffee, looking for basically somebody to go open a coffee shop in another location. And what I mean by that is, these realtors or these developers are always, I'm building a mixed use that has retail and residential, and I want amenities for my tenants. Probably top of mind for a lot of those developers and those real estate folks is a coffee shop being an amenity in these mixed use retail residential that you see popping up everywhere. And that's been the biggest opportunity that I feel like I've received. Um, I'm just trying to remember. I feel like in addition to this opportunity, which didn't come from a realtor, but with this opportunity, I probably had 6 other gestures or people reaching out to me. And most of them were real estate, but it was other parts of town. Hey, we're just building this. We've got a 1,200 square foot. We've got a 2,000 square foot. It's, this type of rent, this type of cams, triple nets, whatever their hook is to get you in. But they're all reaching out. And I guess what I mean by that is, sure, hear them out. What's the harm, right, of hearing a little bit more, especially if you're just doing it over email? Because there might be something in there where it's, oh yeah, and they're very generous on their tenant improvement allowance. And in fact, that we can negotiate that even higher for you, or, whatever those types of things are. So it doesn't hurt to hear them out. Even if you're like me, or where we were, which is, hey, we're not really looking for another opportunity. We didn't think we were in the position for it. Much like when, we started our first business, you can plan and plan and plan, but I think if you're always going to wait for that perfect opportunity will never come upon, will never present itself to you. It's, you kind of have to strike when your gut tells you you're ready, because you're never going to get everything exactly how you want it to be.
How do you suggest that people weigh those options? Because there's this part of hesitation that is, I don't want to take on more. This is not for me. I'm not going to do it. There's a fear part of that part. But then there's the other that is, if I don't act on this now, I'm going to miss out on a great opportunity, and I'm going to be kicking myself, and I have to say yes to this because who knows when I'll get another offer.
Yeah, and I would say cautious approach is always going to be better, right? I mean, of course, I would not jump in just because you heard Kyle talking about it on Keys to the Shop, right? I mean, it's going to be one of those where you want to really ensure that you're in a place with your business. All those other things that we talked about. Do you have a team that can support it? If you're the one that's, and Falene and I talk about this all the time. If you're running the business, or are you in the business, or are you working on the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was, that's kind of, to me, the tipping point where I had to get to that place of, I'm not in the business. I'm not behind the bar every day. I had to get myself and frankly extricate myself a little bit from it to be able to say, okay, it runs without me here. It's, sure, do I miss seeing some of the regulars that I would see when I was behind the bar on a regular basis? Yes. But, in all honesty, I mean, it's running better when I'm not there behind the bar, because, yeah, I like to make a drink, but I'm probably too meticulous and trying to get my latte art just right, or, I don't like the way that shot dialed in, or whatever. Not to say that we're not as focused on quality when I'm not behind the bar, but I take way too long, and customers are waiting and waiting. And, I mean, now I go back, and if I have to jump in, I can see that, yeah, okay, my team does this better than I do. And I think you have to be able to get yourself to that point of, okay, I'm not in the business as much day to day. Yes, I'm still doing invoices and I'm paying the bills and I'm, strategizing for the bigger picture. But if you're behind the bar all day and then trying to do that's the recipe for disaster. You've got to be able to first pull yourself up a little bit, or pull yourself out of the day to day, so that you can then realize, okay, now what would I do with this opportunity? And then you start looking at all the numbers.
Yeah, that goes for whether you say yes or no. It gives you the perspective and the clarity of mind to judge yay or nay on an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, big one for me was comparing it to what we currently had, right? I mean, if I was a couple of these realtors that came back, I mean, I had one that came back with a place up in Boulder, which is north of town, and, pretty desirable area. I think it's come up on various lists over the past couple of years of, one of the top 10 places to live and that kind of thing. So rent's expensive up there. It's probably a good hour drive from first location. All of those types of things I started weighing of like, okay, what do they want per square foot? What's their triple net? wow, that's like $10 more than I'm paying at this location. Can I, will I be able to do something with that? What comes with it? Are they giving me more tenant improvement allowance? Are they, am I not going to see the typical rent increase that I do per year or every 2 years? Or what are the benefits that come with it? And if there aren't any, right, then, I mean, like with that realtor, I sent him an email back and just said, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate it, but we're not looking for that area. Because I also kept thinking, wow, if I'm going to have to drive up there to do whatever that comes with a business, which frankly you're visiting almost every day, can I deal with another hour that I'm going to put into my commute now?
Mm-hmm.
And that was also one where it's just kind of like, yeah, this doesn't make sense for me.
Well, I'm really excited for you all and your team that you found an opportunity that does work for you. And this has really just been fascinating to get inside your mind and the life of your business to look at opportunities. And no doubt this has been really instructive for the Keys to the Shop audience as well. Probably a lot of people just thinking as they start their business or thinking about starting their business, what's the next step after this is established? And getting a bird's eye view of what's going on with Torpedo is really going to help people. So where can we find more information about Torpedo, Close Quarters, and of course, when are you opening?
Yeah, great question. So the, if I had my druthers with all the trades and the contractors and everything, we'd be opening end of this month, but it's probably going to be end of October or beginning of November timeframe.
Okay, and just stay tuned to maybe Torpedo's Instagram account for more information, or do you have social up for Close Quarters right now?
I just started putting social up for Close Quarters. It's at Close Quarters Denco, Denver, Colorado, but just Denco. And then we do not have the website up yet, but it will be theclosequarters.com. And also no Facebook page yet. That's ongoing. But yeah, Instagram has just been created. It's like literally no picture or anything there yet, but more to come on that. But yeah, I'd say keep an eye on Torpedo's Instagram. We will be doing a lot of cross promotion there, as well as the salon, which is at Let 'Em Have It Salon. We've been doing some. Falene always is better than I am at social media, but so she's been posting some things there as well. But yeah, that's where it will be, and we will be adding to our newsletter and those kinds of things from Torpedo, just talking about this as we go. So all of the press and PR and things like that are just kind of coming together. Somewhat feels like a little bit haphazardly, just because I felt like we were so much more planned out with Torpedo, but at the same time, it's helping me to realize, like, okay, what are the priority items we have to get done right now? Whereas the Torpedo, I had a little more luxury of like, well, all of these things are still happening with the build, so yeah. I've got so much more time to go do these things. So now it's just a matter of like knocking down each priority every day, and it's all falling in line. But you've got to also have some faith that you'll get it all done.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for talking with us today. This is really excellent, and really looking forward to seeing the finished product. Best of luck to you in the process. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having us on.
Well, a couple of things really stood out to me here in this conversation. First is the comment that Kyle made about working on your business versus in your business. As he said, he needed to extricate himself from the schedule and trust his team and really allow them to grow, to run the ship and to make sure everything is taken care of. And he can oversee that process and be freed up to pursue these opportunities, or even just be able to be free mentally to thumbs up or thumbs down opportunities. If you're in the mix all the time and you don't really have a lot of margin mentally to process these opportunities, it can be pretty hard to determine if something is right for you. And that brings me to the other thing that was a standout in this conversation to me, was the idea that you have to have a larger view and a thorough view of your current operations and whether or not they can handle this expansion financially as well as culturally. So on the financial end of things, it has to make sense. You can't get into a lease that is going to cost you more than you make. You don't want to be in a location that's not going to make money just because the space is really amazing, but there's not a lot of traffic going by it. So there's some basics that you have to apply in order to determine that you're actually going to be able to make money there and have money to build it out to the right way. And the cultural part of this was where your people are going to be either ready or not ready to absorb the extra energy that it's going to take to bring this into fruition. And I love where Kyle's head is at when he extricated himself from the business. He's also replacing that energy with something else and not expecting people to do more with less. So thinking of the whole picture, that cultural impact and then the financial and the business impact, having systems in place to handle that, this all is part of the process of weighing in the balance opportunities and whether they're right for you in your business. Super happy for Kyle and his team that they found something that works for them, and excited to see it come into fruition. And if you want to stay in touch with what's going on there in Denver with Torpedo and Close Quarters, you can again go to Instagram at The Close Quarters, or follow Torpedo Coffee on Instagram for updates as well. And they're getting their website up, but stay tuned for great things from Kyle Wells in Denver. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us on the show again and giving us a window into your world and helping us make better decisions with opportunities that come our way. Now, if you want to reach out to Keys to the Shop, you can just email me, Chris at keystotheshop.com, with your questions, feedback, comments, things like that. Definitely love hearing from you. You can reach out to me also at that email address if you're interested in working with Keys to the Shop Consulting. If you own a business and you want to bring your operations and your quality and your culture to the next level, if you want an assessment of your operations, if you're getting ready to expand and want to scale well into your second location, Keys to the Shop can definitely be of service, be that in remote coaching over the phone or at your location. Both are available to you. Let's have a conversation about it. Send me an email, Chris at keystotheshop.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about Keys to the Shop Consulting, you can go to keystotheshop.com/consulting. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this delivered a lot of value to you and insights, and that it helps you make great decisions on opportunities in the future. And thank you for making the decision to join us today. I hope you have an awesome week. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.